Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
This video is sponsored by War Thunder. Find out more later in the video. We've heard it a million times before. Germany wins the Battle of Britain.
Hey guys. So, I've seen a few videos of this. The one I remember most is a tick video, which is basically titled, like, oil, or like, why there was just no way that Germany could have won, like, despite any scenario. But I haven't watched a video about alternate history of World War II and, like, how Germany could have won that was phrased this way. The only way Germany could have won World War II, so I'm kind of excited. Maybe if... It's all far-fetched. Maybe if, like, Japan, or if the USA told Japan, like, you know, okay, you can conquer other European holdings in the Pacific that you want, but don't touch our stuff. And we won't, and then America doesn't put an oil embargo on Japan, which Japan sees as an act of war, and then they bomb Pearl Harbor, and then America enters the war. So America wouldn't bomb Pearl Harbor there. America wouldn't enter the war. Maybe then they would offer less support to Britain, and Germany would conquer Britain. And then maybe the Soviet is tackled by Japan, USA, and Germany in that way. It's very far-fetched, but interested to learn what Alternate History Hub has to say here. So let's go. Original link to the video, top of the description from Alternate History Hub. My name is Connor if you're new. Hope everyone's doing well. And my hair is a little wet right now, so it was poofy, and I had to unpoof it. Let's go.
Or Stalingrad, or magically gets its hands on nukes before the Allies do.
Yeah,
winning.
Of course, that would be a win if they got nukes. But the problem with alternate history stuff, if they had like a nuclear program that they were working towards the atomic bomb, and the U.S. just beat them to it. It's my other video getting ready. Then I can see that. But if they weren't working on an atomic project, just saying like, well, what if they had the bomb? That's just too much. Like I'm talking too much. Let's go.
World War II. Right. The truth is, despite being the most popular topic that most people associate alternate history with, there is hardly a single one of these scenarios which is based in reality. I'm talking about a reasonable timeline, one that doesn't massively alter major decisions or bring in the alien space bats. What if there was a scenario where the push of one small domino cascades into a German victory? Well, Jimmy, after digging through countless archives, I think I have an idea. So, a quick recap. After years of preparation and careful annexation under the Allies' policy of appeasement, Mustache Man, that's what we're calling him for this video, is ready to take things further. Germany rolls over Poland in September 1939, with the Soviets joining in for a good old partition. That November, the Soviets invaded Finland. In the winter,
I call him Mustache
and the
Man
following April, Germany rolls through Denmark and Norway. But then, the unimaginable happened. Well, it's pretty imaginable now because we know what happened. On May 10th, 1940, Germany launched a blitzkrieg attacking the Netherlands, Belgium, and France with its entire might. The same day Winston Churchill took office. What took Germany years to take back in World War I was accomplished in 2 weeks. Despite fierce resistance, the Maginot Line, and the nearly 400,000 strong British Expeditionary Force, Paris fell in 35 days. This outcome was shocking, not only to the Allies, but the German High Command as well. In fact, Rommel disobeyed direct orders and used his panzers to cut off a huge portion of troops, pressing them against the English Channel. This rapid advance threatened to overextend the German line, as infantry was struggling to keep up with their tanks, many of which were starting to run out of fuel. That is when an order was given, an order to halt the advance against the port city of Dunkirk on May 24th, to the astonishment of the ground generals who wanted to press their advantage. I think you can see where I'm
Disobeyed
going
in
with
advance.
this. Nearly
In
half a
order
million
once.
Allied personnel were trapped in this tight pocket, awaiting evacuation, and Mustache Man decided to bomb them like fish in a barrel.
I hate how a historical figure it is like Voldemort. Like, you can't name him, you know? I get it for the purpose of a YouTube video. I get it. But it's just... Can we be adults and just talk about historical figures without anyone being, like, accused of, like, oh, wow, you just said his name? Wow, you must support him. It's like... Yeah. I get it, though. I get it.
Using the Luftwaffe, which had complete air superiority, fearing an Allied counterattack. 2 days later, the decision was reversed. But this delay, plus a change of command, gave precious time for the miracle of Dunkirk to happen. The waters around Dunkirk were too shallow, so hundreds of civilian boats and a few destroyers were deployed. And in the course of 9 days, the brave last stand resistance from the French and Belgian forces allowed for 338,000 troops to be rescued back to Britain. You've probably heard that story before, but what rarely gets mentioned here is the weather. You see, out of those 9 days, just 2 had optimal flying conditions, which resulted in staggering losses for the Allies, including the loss of 9 warships. But what do I mean by bad weather conditions? Well, Jimmy, I could tell you, or I could let you experience that for yourself thanks to the sponsor of today's video, War Thunder. The most...
If this interests you guys, it's Alternate History Hub's content. It's this video. Just make sure if you're interested and you learned of it here, you want to try it out. Original link to the video, top of the description. Just use his promo codes and links. Right thing to do.
Extensive vehicle combat
and you'll
game
get,
your little
you know,
gamer eyes ever saw.
Extra
Do you
things,
like jets,
Jimmy.
ships, tanks, and choppers? Well, War Thunder has over 2,500 of them from 10 different nations. Customize those vehicles and skins, markings, and decorations. Oh my, fight in realistic or arcade environments. I won't judge. Who needs a flight stick? Not you. All you need is your mouse, keyboard, and fingers. Fly anything ranging from biplanes to modern battle tanks. You can't fly the tank. I probably should have worded that better. All of these vehicles modeled down to the minute detail. Look how detailed that is. It really does make you feel like a War Thunder. So what are you waiting for? Join 70 million other people in this global community. Fight in epic PvP battles on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation. And what's best is that it's free. If you want to sign up or return to the action after not playing for 6 months, then click on my link in the description to get a massive bonus pack, multiple premium vehicles, and the Eagle of Valor, an exclusive vehicle decorator, not to mention 100,000 silver lions and 7 days of premium account. So why not join in on the battle? Play War Thunder today. Right, so back to the beaches of Dunkirk, where hundreds of thousands of men await their fate. The thing is, the idea of holding back, preventing a counterattack, and picking out both men and precious ships from the Royal Navy isn't a bad one, so I wouldn't really change that controversial order, which was withdrawn anyway 2 days later. What I would change, however, is the weather. Britain held a lot of their fighter planes back, afraid of a direct attack from the German Air Force, meaning that all those evacuation vessels would become easy pickings for the Luftwaffe. Panic ensues, and fearing that there's no way out, a huge portion of the expeditionary force simply takes up arms, joins the French, and fights back. What we see is bogged down urban warfare, where thousands die on both sides. But ultimately, the pocket is squeezed in. As in our timeline,
I feel like the only chance to fight back would have been at the like very completion of the encirclement, where their lines might have been spread a little too thin and just like punched through with a coordinated assault. But that's asking a lot with what little they knew.
The Belgian King Leopold issues his unconditional surrender on May 28th, and within a week, almost everyone at Dunkirk is either dead or captured. Sure, some would be evacuated and live to fight another day, but consider this. On the first day of the evacuation, with very limited pressure from the Germans, only 7,600 soldiers were ferried across the channel. At best, I'd say no more than 40,000 are rescued. In our timeline, Britain had just over 40,000 soldiers captured in the entire Battle of France.
How long, does anyone know how long it would take to take a fishing boat from England to France over the English Channel?
But after this alternate Dunkirk disaster, that number skyrockets to 240,000, more than half of the troops that left the Isles. And we're not just talking about any regular troops here. These were regulars. Huge difference. You know, trained professionals who could have come home and drilled thousands more, which would eventually be useful to fight the Germans and Italians in Africa, Sicily, eventually Normandy. Instead, in this alternate timeline, these guys are now POWs, a massive stain on Churchill's record. Additionally, with clear skies, even more British warships would find their way to the bottom of the channel. Not enough to make Operation Sea Lion a reality or anything, but enough to add to the horror the British public was already experiencing. By the end of June, France signs its unconditional surrender. This means that the lowlands join Denmark and Norway in its occupation. France is replaced with Vichy France. Poland is partitioned. Central Europe is under Mustache Man's thumb. Spain is ruled by Franco, Italy by Mussolini, and the Swiss are just chilling. Britain stands alone. And a furious and embarrassed Winston Churchill.
Guys, this is like my 7th video I've done today, so if you see me blinking a lot and my eyes are a little dry, so I'm staring at a screen.
And a furious and embarrassed Winston Churchill, who wishes he could say "I told you so," hears the deafening cries of fathers, mothers, and brothers who scream, "Bring our boys home." When we look at military conflicts, what we usually look for are the direct casualties as a result of the battle, often ignoring deaths caused by illnesses, which surpass them in every major conflict, unless it was the Russo-Japanese War. But what also gets equally neglected are the captives. The reality is that captives, especially high-ranking ones, play a huge role, including in World War II. Deaths can be martyred, but knowing a huge portion of men are still overseas awaiting an uncertain fate, that can cause a lot of political pressure. In our timeline, an equally isolated Britain had only one reason to continue the fight: survival. But what if there was an alternative? What if peace could be made and also allow for 250,000 Britons to come back home? The miracle of Dunkirk was a huge morale booster, but here it breaks the slim majority in the British war cabinet. In late May, as
okay, but why?
France was going down, it spent 2 days in session, during which Lord Halifax made a proposal to, quote, explore German terms of peace. The session was made up of 5 members, 2 of which, Halifax and Chamberlain, voted for, while Churchill, Attlee, and Greenwood voted against. How hard would it be to imagine that Britain would choose to seek out peace terms? I think in these conditions, that would be very likely, with or without Churchill. So in early July 1940, through an intermediary, probably Spain, high-ranking members from both sides could meet in a conference to discuss terms. Mustache Man's promises to the German people were kept to the letter, and he seemed unstoppable. But considering everything we know about him at this stage of his life, he would have probably given Britain soft terms of peace. Nothing like the life. He would have probably, but considering everything we know about him at this stage of his life, he would have probably given Britain soft terms of peace. Nothing like the unconditional surrenders of the lowlands in France. We would
but you
probably see war reparations being imposed. Malta and Gibraltar given to Italy and Spain respectfully. Special rights over trade could be demanded, especially concerning the Suez, as well as a formal recognition of the Reich's newly gained territories. Finally, a policy of isolationism could be forced upon the British.
In return for giving them back their 240,000 soldiers, Why would Germany do that? Why would Mustache Man do that? I feel like in order to get, if I was Mustache Man and I just had 240,000 of your soldiers that can no longer fight against me if I'm trying to do Operation Sea Lion or just try and subdue you. If you want your... If it comes like you don't get your soldiers back, but I just won't continue fighting you, maybe this is good, but there's no way I would give the soldiers back without an unconditional surrender. Yeah, akin to France or whatever. And if you say no, then okay, I have 240,000 of your very good soldiers. Just we'll continue to fight on with them in our hands. So,
banning them from aiding any resistance groups or meddling in the affairs of Europe even further. Something which would have dire consequences for Greece and Yugoslavia. So, sorry guys. In return, the British could gain a non-aggression treaty with Germany for say like 5 years and have all their captured soldiers brought back unharmed.
Oh, that's crazy.
Like
I think that's crazy. There's no way you would do that. You have the upper hand. Whoa. I would, what do I know? But like, I would be like unconditional surrender or no peace terms. We'll continue to fight you and I'll keep your soldiers.
2 months, the entire Western Front is secure, and now Germany could rest easy, or at least focus its entire strength on that Russian bear. Before we turn east, it's important to look back at the exact timeline of events here. In our world, British defiance is followed up with the Battle of Britain, which more or less cripples the Luftwaffe. Between mid-July and late October of 1940, it lost 2,000 aircraft trying to soften up the ground targets and beat out the Royal Air Force. Aircraft can be replaced, but since the battle was fought over British soil, any German pilot who parachuted out of their aircraft would find themselves in hostile territory on an island. The Allied pilots, on the other hand, could easily be given a bandage, respawn, and join a new match. Ultimately, the loss of its best pilots was deeply felt, and this was a blow from which the German Air Force never really recovered. In the meantime, Italy also wanted a piece of the action after their failed attempt at aiding Germany against France, so they picked someone their own size, alone, to prove their military prowess. You can imagine how that went. After that disastrous campaign, the Reich stepped in and snowballed through Yugoslavia and Greece between April and June of 1941. Many argued that this side quest delayed the surprise invasion of the Soviet Union, but not really. You see, in order to conduct their operations, the Germans needed to wait for the ground to harden, so at most, they lost like a single month. That being said, the wear and tear on their vehicles and aircraft, the fatigue of their soldiers, and the expenditure of resources did take a toll on the army. Finally, when Germany did invade the Soviets in late June, not during the winter like many believe, it was a massive success. Within 1 month, Brest-Litovsk, Minsk, Riga, Lviv, and Smolensk fell. But by the time winter did come, the German advance slowed down, in large part due to the confusing decision to move armored units around, first away from Army Group Center and then later back to it. More than anything, it was the delay and wear and tear of this maneuver that cost the Germans Leningrad and other strategic targets. And then by October, good old Uncle Sam in Britain began sending numerous shipments of supplies and equipment, prolonging the fight. The rest is history. But after a disastrous Dunkirk and pieced out Britain, yeah, the timeline's history is kind of different. In the short term, the last stand at Dunkirk means that Germany sustained some extra casualties and obtained slightly less military hardware. But that also means no Battle of Britain, aka the Luftwaffe doesn't get nerfed. Additionally, with Britain pledging to not interfere in the continent, Greece and Yugoslavia don't get the valuable aid they received in our timeline. Now, does that mean that Italy would succeed? Obviously not. But it does mean that the invasion of the Balkans starts sooner and ends much much quicker. Actually, it's even possible for them, especially Yugoslavia, to go the we're kinda with the Axis but not really route that Bulgaria took. Germany has only one front to worry about, and engages the Soviet Union in early June of 1941. A completely unprepared communist front line collapses as the
I love how much you can convey with simple figures, cartoon figures, with just the shape and placement of the eyes. Eyes wide, far apart means stupid. Eyes closed, shaved off the top, angry. Eyes just laterally cut off just means like, okay. It's crazy how much you can convey a human emotion just with simple figures and just a little manipulation of the dots for eyes.
Wehrmacht speed runs through the Eastern Front. For just a moment, I want to highlight what is now called the German-Soviet Air War on June 22nd, 1941, the largest air battle in military history. On one side, you have just over 10,000 Soviet aircraft. On the other, 3,300 German. Now, if you didn't know, Germany won. But try to guess how many aircraft were lost by the Luftwaffe. Don't worry, I'll wait. Whatever
500, 750.
you guessed, you're probably wrong, because the real answer is 55.
What?
55 aircraft to the Soviets' 4,000.
So not much off of you just giving up and just not doing anything and letting you.
The preemptive
That's
strikes
insane.
on Soviet airfields, more effective
That happened in our timeline. So imagine with the
radio systems,
no Britain
superior aircraft, and pilot experience
casualties.
all led to one outcome: total German dominance.
Lordy Lord.
Messerschmitts and Junkers patrolled the air and rained
Junkers.
fire from above.
Junker.
Wehrmacht knew exactly where the enemy was, while the Soviets scrambled from one defense line to the next. All of this happened in our timeline, even with the heavy losses at the Battle of Britain. Now imagine what an even stronger
Like
Air
2
Force
losses?
could do. To state the
due to mechanical
superior
failure.
aircraft and pilot experience all led to one outcome: total German dominance. Messerschmitts and Junkers patrolled the air and rained fire from above. Wehrmacht knew exactly where the enemy was, while the Soviets scrambled from one defense line to the next. All of this happened in our timeline, even with the heavy losses at the Battle of Britain. Now imagine what an even stronger Air Force could do. To state the obvious right away, do you really think the siege of Leningrad would have lasted over 2 years under these conditions? The mobility of both ground and air forces allows for an even more deadly blitzkrieg. Before the well-known failure at Stalingrad,
And with the fall of Britain, and Denmark and Norway falling as they did, I'd imagine the Finns would be even more persuaded to join, full-throatedly join with Germany. Maybe even Sweden stop being neutral or something, and then could pose 4 fronts.
Couch tacticians are quick to
Barbaros.
point out the missed opportunities at Leningrad and Moscow, both of which were within Mustache Man's grasp. The extra month, extra munitions, extra aircraft and pilots, and improved organization might not be enough to take out both by the end of 41, but at least one of them is surely going down. The next big thing on the agenda is Lend-Lease. Does Roosevelt really just sit back and observe as Germany takes over continental Europe? Well, yeah. No, seriously. What could America really do? Britain was the crucial connection to the continent, and even if they did choose to break the treaty with Germany, the aid sent through the Persian Gulf, Arctic, and Pacific would be little too late.
So with America, obviously it's pretty isolationist, and it's going to take something like Pearl Harbor or like sinking of Lusitania in World War I or to get you in. But when you see Britain fall, like the world order is going to change so much that it's going to affect you pretty badly, regardless of a direct attack. And so maybe they would somehow get around to actually. I mean, what are you going to do? I guess maybe get a British secret government come over to Canada and then talk about landing troops in Northern Africa and the Middle East and pushing through. It's a stretch, so...
History is all about timing, and if one of the three army groups achieved its main goal, that being Leningrad, Moscow, or Stalingrad, the fall of the other two would become a lot easier. Hypothetically, let's say Leningrad falls first. That's almost an extra 1 million troops, and a ton of hardware now making its way from Moscow. Once Moscow falls, it's off to Stalingrad, and the oil fields of the Caucasus. Oh, don't worry, I didn't forget about those oil fields. There is no timeline in which Germany could sustain a prolonged war on multiple fronts, with dangers looming from Britain, Africa, and the East. But in this one hypothetical, the full might of the Wehrmacht and Luftwaffe simply breaks down Stalin within 18 months. As crazy as that sounds,
it likely would, since it was pretty close already. And you have no threats from the West. And so all of the troops are there, and that probably is going to tip the balance, even if you don't take Leningrad or Moscow first, into taking Stalingrad. Right?
Rebel groups year-round, and it won't make much of a difference, even with the broken Enigma code at the end of 42. I know it sounds crazy.
Which would they even do?
Japan still hits Pearl Harbor, leading to a very bleak reality. By mid-1943, the Axis powers dominate the old world, and in their triumph, take a year of respite to lick their wounds, which, despite these successes, are going to be severe. Puppet states need to be propped up, resources are exploited, manpower forcefully conscripted, and Germany takes on a new super project. One not simply aimed at restoring its manpower, tanks, and aircraft to full capacity. Oh no, we're talking about building a Kriegsmarine worthy of taking on the Royal Navy. Goliath battleships that would make the Bismarck seem like a ferry boat, and an armada of U-boats. This would be a Germany that's in at least a better position. Not the perfect position, but a better one. So the Bismarck took about 27 months to build, a feasible timeline in which the entire might of the Reich is focused on toppling the final thorn in its side. Non-aggression treaties be damned. Let's say in May 1945, the air raid sirens blare from Plymouth to Norwich, and the Spitfire...
Wait, but why? They're in a non-aggression pact. I know you just said be damned, but why? Oh, I'm dumb.
Take to the skies. Intercept.
So after the Soviets are conquered.
Enigma codes allow the Brits to hold off most of the bombing raids at a great cost. But then comes the battle at sea. HMS Vanguard, King George, and the Prince of Wales face off against the newest class of super ships in an epic standoff. Germany gives itself a few months to break down the super ships in an epic standoff.
I like these drawings.
Germany gives itself a few months to break down as much of the enemy morale, ships, and aircraft as possible, while amassing a 1 million force, mostly made up of Eastern Front veterans. The best of the best, ready to launch a reverse Normandy, which would,
Manhattan Project?
1945. An unsuspecting Berlin is obliterated by Little Boy. A few days later, Hamburg, the most important coastal city and major shipyard for the Kriegsmarine, follows suit. The American giant is awake.
But wouldn't they go after Japan? Because Britain is already... So what, are you gonna fly over the Atlantic to drop the bombs? You don't have the distance for that. How do you reach Europe as America to even drop the bombs? You have like 400 miles of range, even with the bombers you got, the B-52, B-42, B-22, what is it called? B-52. And like at that point, it's like, why go after Germany?
And while Turing was decrypting Enigma codes in Bletchley Park, Oppenheimer was ushering in the atomic age in Los Alamos. The nuking of Germany was the original goal of the Manhattan Project. It was only sidelined after the rapid success of Stalingrad and Normandy. In our timeline, the atomic bombings were little more.
But that's with 4 years of Britain still alive and not capitulated to Germany or non-aggression pact.
than a cherry on top. However, here, in a timeline where Germany actually succeeds, the nukes are a game changer. An Allied D-Day type campaign would be impossible with a pacified Russia. The atomic bombs would basically be an ace in the hole designed to solve a problem exactly such as this. And that's a hand that could only be played twice, at least in the short term.
I think they
Germany
were
was
making
always
a
the main
third.
target
Oh, yeah.
here. What happens next? How does Germany react? Does the bombing take out Mustache Man? Do the bombings prompt large-scale rebellions in Europe? Who knows? The thing about alternate history is that this is just fiction at the end of the day. Despite
The further you
clickbaity
go
title,
into the
I
scenario,
don't have a magic
too.
8-ball. I've done research, sure, but this is really
And the further you go into the alternate history scenario, the less sure you can be about any potential scenario.
just one take. That's the beauty of alternate history. With every hypothetical answer, there are numerous hypothetical questions and rabbit holes to follow. So feel free to call me out on what I missed or got wrong, as I'm sure a lot of people are going to do. Hello, Twitter. Special thanks once again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video.
Obviously, remember, use the links if you're interested. Original link, top of the description. From Alternate History Hub. It's a great video. This is a great channel. They always have great videos. I'd appreciate any comments down below, guys. I love y'all. And hopefully I'll see you guys next time. Bye.